And again, if you have any questions about getting access to these kind of reports yourself, please let us know, and I'll be happy to either help you myself or get you tied into the right people at Lincoln to help you find these reports. The second thing I had was Wealth Management Forum. So that's coming up next week. I am going to go. I originally was planning not to go, but I had some schedule changes, so I was able to make it. And so I'm going to be there. And one of the things I wanted to bring up was I'll be at the advisory council meetings. So if any of you have things that you'd like to make sure I bring up at that meeting, if you could please let me know in the next couple of days so I can forward that information to the people that run that advisory council meeting and make sure that your issues are addressed, I would appreciate it. It's one of the reasons that I'm going, frankly, is there are, some opportunities for me to maybe have a little bit of influence, but also to get a better picture of some of the things that Lincoln has on board for next year and for the rest of this year. So please let me know if you have any issues that you'd like brought up either in that meeting or with other individuals that will be there. Angie Stahovsky is also going to attend. So again, anything if you want to talk to your admin and make sure that you get their input and that make sure we know, anything that we can bring up while we're there, we'd be happy to do it. Other than that, we're starting the final stretch here, folks, and this is always an interesting time of year. It's a busy time. There's a whole lot of year-end issues. There's tax issues, RMDs, all kinds of things that are, important parts of everyone's business. And on top of that, it's the holidays. So lots going on. Remember, we're here to help. If there's anything we can do, let us know. I will be sending out some next month, some communications on planning for next year so I can get some input from everybody as we begin making our finalizing our business plans here at Wealth Management Partners. Does anybody have any questions or issues that they want to bring up before I introduce our speaker today? Okay, well, first of all, I want to let you know the Riskalyze discussion here that we're having is, I think, a really perfect follow-up to what we did last month with Vanguard. And I hope that all of you took the time, to look at some of the follow-up materials that we send and also got a lot out of that presentation, because I do hear from time to time, and we hear this, in good markets and bad, but, where's the value? Are you bringing value as an advisor to my investment results and as a client? And I thought really the Vanguard presentation was an important one for us to acknowledge and to get that information, because I think it really helps us understand where we have to focus those clients and focus our efforts as we bring new people on board and continue to service our current book of business. But if you look at their data, they claim that, and this from their research, that rebalancing is about 35 basis points of value, behavioral coaching 150 basis points, and asset allocation somewhere between 0 and 75. Now, and that's the majority of the 300 basis points that their research indicates an advisor typically can bring to that client relationship. Well, obviously the rebalancing, you only get that if you actually rebalance, okay? The asset allocation is an important part of that, but if you don't do the rebalancing, then you get out of the allocation and you run the risk of losing that part of the value that you bring. But then the behavioral coaching is a huge piece of this. And a large part, I believe, of making, of being successful at behavioral coaching is to get clients to understand their allocations, to understand their own risk profile, and to have a process to keep them in that comfort level. And something you can refer back to in an organized fashion. And so that brings us to what we're going to hear about today from Riskalyze. And I will tell you, you know, this is a firm that has grown dramatically. It's the fastest growing business that I'm aware of in the industry right now. They have grown to, and Kyle will have better data on this, from basically 0 to over 20,000 clients within our industry in a very short period of time. And it's growing every single day. And you see it now more and more integrated into more and more platforms, and more and more companies are taking advantage of this tool. So we're lucky today to have Kyle Van Pelt from Riskalyze that's going to go through a quick demo and answer questions and hopefully give you a really good taste for what I believe is a very, very powerful tool for you and your clients. So Kyle, let's get started.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. Just want to do a quick check. John or Stephanie, if you could let me know, first of all, can you hear me? And second of all, can you see my screen? It should say, let's empower the world to invest fearlessly.
And the answer is yes to both.
Okay. Well, I'm going to assume that everybody else on the line can also hear me and see my screen. So with that, I'm going to dive in, set the stage quickly with a quick little presentation here, and then I will jump in and do a demo so you can see the software in action. As John said, my name is Kyle Van Pelt. I'm Vice President of Partnerships here at Riskalyze. So I work with broker-dealers, I work with other technology providers, and I work with a lot of the asset managers that you all use in your firms every day. Here at Riskalyze, our mission is to empower the world to invest fearlessly. We lead almost everything with that. And we believe that the world has been full of fear on this, not because there haven't been fantastic professionals like the folks that are on the phone, but because it has just been really difficult for both sides of the table to speak the same language and understand where each side is coming from. We think we may have cracked the nut on solving that problem, but let's talk about it a little bit deeper. We actually believe that the world of investing is broken and needs to be fixed. We think there's a few reasons why. So number one, and one of the biggest ones, is that we believe that the short term gets ignored. And there's good reason for that. I think we've all been trained to ignore the short term because we all want great long-term investors. Everybody on the phone knows that if you can get a client to just stay invested for the long haul, they're going to be successful. In fact, John was telling me a story when we were chatting earlier that he has a friend who back in 2008 went to cash, and they've stayed in cash since 2008 and missed this remarkable bull market that we've been a part of the whole time. If we had found a way to be able to keep that friend and invested over the long haul, they would have enjoyed these fantastic returns over the past couple of years. So we have to figure out a way to deal with the short term so that we can encourage people to stay invested for the long term. Number two, investors get overwhelmed. Right now, we are trying to justify our value as advisors by showing all of the work that we do, which is great. But on the flip side of that, clients are going home with these 30-page binders full of statistics and numbers and charts that they don't understand. And they get home and they look at each other and they say, you know, this is all well and good. It looks like my advisor's been doing a bunch of work for me, but I don't understand all of it. And they get overwhelmed, and that creates fear in the investing process. Bad expectations are sabotage for every one of you. You know, I wish we could be in a room so I could ask everybody to raise your hand. You know, if a client has ever really tried to pin you down to what kind of return you were going to get from their portfolio. It's practically an impossible question to answer, but we'll tend to answer it with something like this that you see on the screen. Well, we're targeting an 8% return for this portfolio based off of what we've seen over the market average, right? That is a really, really difficult target to hit, and we need to come up with a better range and give you all a better bullseye to hit when it comes to setting expectations with your clients, because here's some bad news. Over the past 25 years, and we could take any 25-year slice the S&P 500, the market almost never hits its own average. It will average out to over 8% over 25 years, but very rarely is it going to hit 8% in a year, which in turn creates really difficult conversations for you every time that client comes back in to talk about it. And then lastly, this is our bread and butter. Stereotypes don't work. We use them because we don't have any other tool. But these stereotypes of if you're young, you should be aggressive. If you're old, you should be conservative. And if you're middle-aged, we're going to put you in some bucket in the middle. And then I'm going to create these template portfolios that are also assigned to the stereotypes. And I'm going to try and fit my very personal individual client into this very non-personal stereotypical template, which I know and I've heard from hundreds, if not thousands of advisors that they don't want to do. They just haven't had a better system. So here's an interesting fact. Our research team went out and discovered that over 52% of people in their 20s are not aggressive. Conversely, 53% of people in their 70s were not conservative. This could be for a multitude of reasons. I've seen a lot of folks in their 20s who grew up and saw their parents go through the financial crisis. I'm one of them. I saw my dad lose over half of his investment portfolio in 2008 and 2009. It took him 7 or 8 years of additional work to be able to retire when he was on track to retire in 2009. Conversely, conservative folks, some people have achieved what they wanted to out of life, and they don't want to just conserve or preserve. They want to continue to grow so that they can leave legacy. Maybe they want to pay for their grandkids' college to take that burden off of their children. Or maybe there's a host of other reasons. We don't know. But what we do know is just because they're in their 70s doesn't mean that they should be conservative. It turns out people are individuals, and a big shocker. And we need to find a way to treat them as individuals, especially when it comes to something as important as their wealth and their wealth accumulation and their wealth decumulation. We need a better way. So that's why we invented the third wave of financial advice. The first wave, I think we all remember this. We call it the My Mutual Fund is Better Than That Guy's Mutual Fund wave. This is the 80s. They made movies about this where there was always a hot tip. Clients were going from advisor to advisor because every year when that mutual fund didn't hit the returns that you had promised, there was another advisor right down the street promising better returns with their mutual fund. And the client was going there because all people were doing was chasing returns from the best fund and with the advisor who had access to the secret hot new fund. It's really hard to build a sustainable practice and achieve the numbers that John was talking about at the beginning of this call if clients are hopping from advisor to advisor. So we needed to find a better way, which brought us into the second wave of advice, which is long-term goal investing. Now, don't get me wrong. We love the long-term goal of investing approach here at Riskalyze, except for it comes with a caveat. The way that we tell people to be long-term investors is we say, don't worry about the short term. Don't open your statements. Don't watch TV. Don't go on the internet. Just be a long-term investor. And as we know, human beings are incapable of that. And it's why you still get all kinds of calls where people are freaking out about the short term, and those short-term decisions are sabotaging them because humans do not think in short-term periods. I'll give you a great example of this, and we'll take it out of investing. I'm sure every one of you has had a doctor say to you at one time or another, you need to start exercising because it's going to really help you 30 years from now if you start doing it today. I don't think anybody built a habit of exercising every day because we can't look at what life looks like 30 years in the future. However, this company called Beachbody comes out with a product called P90X. They say, I don't know about 30 years from now, but if you can just work out for the next 90 days, your body's going to look great. You're going to look good on the beach. And oh, by the way, you're really going to thank yourself 30 years from now. That product exploded. All kinds of Americans got healthier and healthier and healthier, and their doctors were happy. What Beachbody did is they encouraged great short-term behavior. They focused on the short term, which created fantastic habits and behavioral change that is going to impact the long-term health of those people. So we need a better way. And that's why we have created the third wave of advice, which we call the fearless investing movement. It's putting risk first in the conversation, which allows us to stop sabotaging short-term decisions and start empowering great short-term decisions, now creating fantastic long-term investors. For you as advisors, this is going to create fantastic clients as well, and it's really powerful. It all starts with something we invented called the risk number. Very simple, similar to the sleep number. It's the foundation of every single thing that we do. This isn't just something we created. It's built on a Nobel Prize-winning framework called prospect theory, purported by Professor Daniel Kahneman, the author of the book Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. The basic core tenet of prospect theory is that losses hurt a lot more than gains feel good. Our definition of risk tolerance here at Riskalyze is how far an investor's portfolio can fall within a fixed period of time before that investor is going to capitulate and make a poor, emotionally charged investing decision, like John Sprint. If we can give you all a tool that will empower you to know that moment when the client is going to call and ask you to take all of their money out, or that they want to get out, or they want to fire you. And then we can also have a tool that lets you build a portfolio that doesn't reach that point. Then we've got something here, all built on a Nobel Prize-winning framework. We've won a few awards. Fast Company named us one of the top 10 most innovative companies in finance. As John said, one of the quickest growing companies in this space, a little over 22,000 advisors, and just over 4 years of being in business. I think we're onto something. Morningstar, a name I'm sure we've all heard, named us the best client-facing technology in the industry. And Forbes has named us to their FinTech 50 list 2 years in a row. So at this point, I'm actually going to hop out here and jump into the demo. But before I do, I don't know, John or Stephanie, is there a way for me to take questions? Is that possible?
Yeah. I guess the easiest way is just to come off mute and ask the question over the phone, right? Yep.
I think so. So any questions before I dive into the demo? Doesn't
Kyle?
sound like it. Yeah, go ahead.
Kyle, is this similar? This looks similar from what I've seen so far to the risk process that FTJ Fund Choice is using. Is that correct? Are you familiar with it?
Similar. Oh yeah, we're friends with FTJ Fund Choice, but I think they use another company called Advisory World at the heart of it, who is kind of they're starting to do something a little different than us. I think you'll find that ours is has a few more bells and whistles than that. But we love what FTJ Fund Choice is doing. I think they're going in a great direction.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions before we dive in? All right, let's get started. So this is what we call our advisor dashboard. It's what you're going to see whenever you log in. Nice, easy to use, easy to act upon interface. We could search for current clients here with this little dashboard. We can add a new client here. We have a couple ways of doing that. We can pull in clients from all kinds of integrations, whether it's your custodian, your CRM, or an aggregator like Allbridge or something like that, a portfolio management system. We have all of those. For the sake of this demo, I'm going to enter one manually and create my friend John here. And once I create him, you're going to see this nice, pretty little client dashboard. So with a new client like John, the first thing we need to do is get John's risk number. We have two ways of doing this. We can either set a risk target. So maybe you've worked with that client for a long time. You know that they are a genuinely conservative investor. And so we can put them in our bucket that we've called conservative, and we're going to be able to have a good conversation about that. The other thing that we can do is take our questionnaire. We have a couple different questionnaires. We always recommend using the simple one. It's going to be a dynamic questionnaire that you can email out to the client. You can give them a link, or you can just launch it while they're sitting there in your office. You can also send this right to their iPhone and make it easy to use. I'm going to walk through it real quick. It takes about 2 minutes to do this. Very simple. It'll be all branded for your firm. So this isn't something that is going to be disassociated with you and your brand. So we're going to walk through this quick, ask a couple of questions to get to know the investor. This doesn't affect the risk number, but this is good for the conversation when you bring them in. So we'll say wealth accumulation, retirement, and income. Anything else they want to tell you about their financial status? We're going to ask them about when they were born, because this allows us to see how much risk they need in their portfolio a little bit later. And then we're going to ask for real dollar amounts, because we all know that if you tell someone your portfolio could be down 15%, that doesn't sound very bad. But if you tell them that 15% is going to be, $150,000, well, all of a sudden their ears start to perk up a little bit. So we want to know in real dollar amounts how they would behave in a certain scenario. So we ask for their total investment portfolio. So number one, that helps you know how much money they have to invest if they're a prospect. Number two, it's going to give you a more accurate depiction of their risk. We start with this fun slider. So this is just to get a baseline understanding of, are we dealing with traditionally a more conservative investor or a more aggressive investor? And you can see that the dollar amounts change with this. I'm going to go ahead and put this right in the middle just for the sake of this. So at 10% up and 10% down, this is how much risk they would feel comfortable handling over the next 6 months. But now we're going to see how this could get better. So Mr. or Mrs. Investor, you told us that you would be comfortable risking up to 10% of your portfolio in order to gain 10%. You're hiring an advisor because you know that this is not supposed to be a coin flip. My question to you is, how would you make this better? Would you love to get 10% returns, and now you want to see how much risk we can take off the table? Or are you saying 10% is my floor, I don't want to see it go any lower than that, now show me how much reward I can get? I work in a high growth company. I tend to be a little bit more reward focused, and I'm okay with a little bit more risk, so I'm going to take this one. But now Riskalyze is asking, was 10% really your floor? So you told us 10%, but if I entice you with a few more returns, if I can get you about $10,000 more, would you risk about another $6,000, $7,000? We're trying to see the psychological side of this. For me, no, 10%, that was my number. I don't want to go any lower than that. I don't want to lose any more than $25,000. And we said, okay, maybe we got a little too aggressive on that last one. What if we could get you about another $4,000 and you'd only have to risk an additional $3,000 or so to get there? Upon which I would still say, nope, I don't want to lose any more than $25,000. That is my choice. And I would find out then that my risk number is a 51. My comfort zone, and this goes back to the expectation setting that we were talking about before, is that over the next 6 months, I am comfortable risking up to 10% of my investment portfolio in order to gain up to 16%. Now I'm going to stop there and say, this is not a coin flip. We're not saying that if we build a portfolio that is a 51, that you're either going to be down 10% or up 16. The beauty of what we do is we say, Mr. or Mrs. Investor, if you have a risk number 51 portfolio, within 95% certainty, your portfolio will land between one of these two numbers. There's 5% of risk we can't quantify because of things like black swan events. And we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but we're really, really confident that if we build a risk number 51 portfolio, that you will land in between one of these two numbers. And they say, great, that looks like me, that feels like me, I'm a risk number 51, what's next? So what is next is we come back over here to John, come back to his portfolio. This should refresh, give me his risk number. There we go. So John is a 51. Now you bring the client into the office, or if they're already there, we say, okay, we got to find out, we know your risk tolerance now, we know you're a 51, we know you don't want to be down any more than 10%, and we have our nice big expectation that we want to hit. Let's find out how much risk you have in your current portfolio. We can do this in a couple of ways. We can sync the assets in from account aggregation if you'd like to use that. We can enter them manually, or we can also export a file from wherever they're at today. Maybe it's at Merrill or someplace like that. We have all of these places where all you need is an exported spreadsheet from wherever their account is at today, and you can drag it right into this window and we'll handle all the rest. Since I don't have a real account, I'm going to go ahead and copy a fake model portfolio here. And it would not be uncommon to see something like this. So 4 out of 5 investors we've found have more risk in their current portfolio than they're comfortable with. So as you can see here, this current—
Kyle,
yes, sir.
excuse me, this is John. Let me ask you just a quick question based on the slides that we just saw there. So let's say I've got, the client has given me some account statements from Morgan Stanley. So what you telling me, I can scan those into my computer and then drag them into that spot, and that will download that data?
So not necessarily scan them, although that's a cool idea. I'm going to take that to the product team. What you would do is you would say, okay, so you're at Morgan. You would pull up their Morgan, or you'd go to morganstanley.com. You'd flip your keyboard over to them and say, hey, go ahead and log into your account. I'm not going to look at your username or password. But once they're logged in, you'll go to those same statements. You'll export them to a spreadsheet, and then you can drag that spreadsheet into this window. So that's how you would do it that way.
Okay.
Got it? So as I was saying, 4 out of 5 people have more risk in their portfolio than they're comfortable with. And this happens all the time. This is great for the advisors on the phone because what's happened now is you have not sold anything, you haven't pitched anything, we haven't really talked about anything other than just what the client's risk is. And the client has seen you haven't done any voodoo to their portfolio. You just took the thing that they give you and you put it in here, and we found out that they have a risk number 66. And as we would see when I come in here, we say, wow, so you told me that you didn't want to be down any more than 10%. And right now, this portfolio, you could potentially be down up to 14%. You're risking an additional $10,000 on what you were comfortable with. That's pretty tough. We've got to figure out what we're going to do about that. At this point, you can come in and propose a new portfolio. We have tons of advisors who will load their models in here. Those same models that we talked about before that were kind of broken, we can fix them by assigning a risk number to them and making it easy to adjust them to a client. So let me see if I can find a model that's a risk number 50 or a risk number 51 in here. Oh, I copied the current portfolio. I messed that up. Create a new model here. Add account. There we go. Okay. Trinity model here. That's a 51. And drop down to a 50 a little bit there. So now you can picture saying to the client, listen, you are risk number 50. You don't want to lose any more than 10%. Right now, you're risking up to 14% of your portfolio, an additional $10,000 more than what you told me you were comfortable with. I've got this great model that will fit you really well. It's not going to go down any further than what you're comfortable with. We're still going to get some fantastic returns. And I think this is a great fit for you. At Riskalyze, we call this the ACAT form moment because you're going to want to have that sheet ready for the prospect to sign over if they're sitting there, because we see it all the time. And I'll tell you a quick story in a second after I'm done with this. But the next thing that we want to do is stress test this portfolio, right? So we hear all the time from advisors that the conversation they hate is, why is my portfolio not beating the market? It's a great question. It's tough to answer without a tool to help you have that conversation. So what we use is we flip on stress tests and we say, okay, so your portfolio is a 50, you're a 51. We don't want to lose any more than 10%. The market is a 78. So yes, it is up right now in this fantastic bull market that we're having. And you're up too, by the way. You know, and the bull market's not going to continue forever. So let's just take a look at what would happen if times weren't always so good. So let's see what would happen to these portfolios if a 2008 bear market would happen again. The market was down 38%. This portfolio would have only been down 15%. If we had the financial crisis from peak to trough, the market was down 53%. You would have only been down 21.3%. So let me ask you, if you want a portfolio like the market, I can probably put you in a better one than the market. But I think if the market turns, you're not going to want to have that kind of volatility and risk, which is why you told me you were a 51. Almost every single time, folks, that conversation gets the client off the ledge. It fixes that short-term sabotage we talked about at the beginning. It adds that behavioral coaching, which John said, and from the talk last month is upwards of 150 basis points of value as an advisor. And let me just ask you, psychologically, what do you think your client is thinking when they see this tool and you use this tool with them? They know that you have something in your tool belt that is helping manage their behavior and helping coach them to be the long-term investor that they want to be. You are keeping them from short-term sabotage. The great news too is just last week, we had our conference and announced some new stuff. These are getting a beautiful revamp. So we have these kind of static options here, these 4 static options. You'll be able to create your own scenarios. We're changing the name from stress test to scenarios. You can use some historical data. You can create your own custom scenarios for those clients who maybe want to load up on Apple or energy stocks or all manner of things. You'll be able to create them and save them and have conversations even more personalized and individual to your client and prospects portfolio, which is really powerful, and that comes out this week. So the last thing I want to show you before I tell you a quick story is why we answered the person's age and retirement date earlier. We need to find out if 51 is enough risk to get them where they want to go. So they've got savings of this, and we want to withdraw, let's say, $6,000 a month. Oof, we only have a 16% probability. So we've got to fix a couple things. Now, I'll also tell you what happens here. This visualization is super light financial planning. This is a great launch pad into comprehensive financial planning, like an eMoney or a Money Guide Pro or a Nava plan or anything else that you're using, because we're only focusing on one thing here. But what this does, number one, is it helps see, do you have enough risk in your portfolio? Because we all know that there are those people out there in the world who tell you that they're a risk number one. They never want to lose money, but they want you to get them 15% returns every year. And let's just say they're unrealistic. We can use something like this to show them you need to have more risk to get where you want to go. Number two, this is going to help you find held away assets. So this scenario is a great one. Listen, you've got $250,000. You want to retire in the next, 25 years or so. You want to withdraw this much. We're just not going to get there. You could save $1,700 per month. I don't know if you're going to be able to triple your savings. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Or we could withdraw only $3,600 and that'll get us where we want to go. Is there anything else? And we hear this all the time where somebody will say, oh, well, I have $100,000 in a 401k from work that I haven't rolled over. What would happen if we take that 250 to 350 to the probability percentage? So we went up to 63, which is okay. We're getting there. And now we have some more realistic options. We say, okay, what about retiring in 2047? That's a couple years later. So you can see how this creates a great conversation. Or we can say, listen, I understand you're a 51. What if I was able to just add a little bit more risk to this portfolio? Let's go to a 55. See what happens. We go up to a 77. You could say to this client, listen, I can give you a 55 portfolio that will still act like a 51. I have some ways to do that. I'll talk about that in one other second. Or let's see if we go up to a 60 even. What's going to happen to this retirement map? 89 probability percentage. And now we have you could retire 1 year later. You could retire like or invest like a 64. So Riskalyze is going to continue to give you these options on the fly. And what I will tell you that I've seen a lot of advisors do, I heard John praising the fee-only business. I think that's fantastic. We love that. We believe in it here at Riskalyze. But I'll pause really quick and ask John, are you guys are you doing any annuity business, anything like that at Wealth Management Partners?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We still, we're a hybrid firm. So,
okay.
The percentages are way skewed in the fee area, but we still, do and encourage, basically, the commission business is still it's still part of our core business, I would say.
Sure. Great. Well, this is going to be really cool then what I show you. So as you can imagine, you're saying, this client's saying, well, I'm a risk number 51. I don't want to be invested like a 60, or let's just go all the way here and get up to a 93% probability and be invested like a 64. You can imagine the client is starting to get a little skittish, because they're going to say, well, my other portfolio was a 66. Should I go back to the other advisor? And you say, no. What I can do for you is we can invest this portfolio like a 66. And then, so let me just create a new proposal here. I'm going to invest this like a 66 on the equity side, maybe even higher, as a matter of fact. I can actually invest you in something maybe in a 75, 76. And then we can add an annuity. We have all kinds of different annuity products here, but I'm just going to grab an Allianz one just for, or so I grabbed Allstate. I'm going to grab an Allianz one just for the sake of it. I'm going to grab this Advantage one. We have all kinds of sub accounts. We'll leave them off and just do this balanced index strategy. I'm going to use it as an income stream because that's what we want to do. I think a lot of you can probably guess what I'm doing here. So let's just put let's do $75,000 in an annuity. Income start year is in 2047. 5%, 3.5%. We won't mess with riders, but you can do that if you want to. Choose most aggressive sub account, common if we're using income stream. So you can see how we're helping you here. Once we do this, this is going to be treated like a 1 because we are, when we put this big hedge here, assuming the annuity is held to term, because there is risk if it's terminated early. But since we're treating it like an income stream, we're going to hedge it down to a 1. I just took your 75 and hedged it down to a 62. We could play with this in a couple different ways. Maybe if I don't put a 75 here, if I put a 70, this would be back down in that 50 range. So you can use a product like an annuity, and you can use Riskalyze to show those more nervous clients, hey, I can put a lot more volatility in your investment portfolio and hedge the total risk of the portfolio down by using something like an annuity or other vehicles that we have here at Wealth Management Partners. Because the goal, and I don't want this to be missed, the goal is not for this account to match your client's risk number. It's for the total portfolio to match the client's risk number. What they care about is, how much money do I have with you, and is that money in line with the risk that we need? And I can't overstate the fact that the behavioral side of this, them knowing that you have a tool that is going to continue to help them stay invested that way, is really powerful. I want to finish with a story and then open it up for questions. Let me go back here to my presentation. So, oh, I gotta click through here. I meant to hide all these slides, I apologize. Okay, so I want to tell you the story of John and Ruth. This is a real story from an advisor client of ours. So John had just retired. He'd been with this advisor for 10 plus years. They played golf together. You know, they went to community events together. They liked each other. John had just retired. He had about $2 million, but he calls this advisor up from a referral and he says, listen, I got $2 million. I just retired, but I'm really nervous. I mean, I'm making a lot of money, but my portfolio just feels way more volatile than it's supposed to, especially being retired, and I want to keep my money. But he started to get kind of nervous. He said, but I've been with this advisor for 10 years. You know, he's made me a lot of money. He's been good to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking for a second opinion. So like a good advisor, they bring John in and they say, let's just take a look. I'll give you a second opinion. They go through the risk assessment process with John, and they find out that John is a 23. Not crazy after hearing the way that he was talking about all the volatility in his portfolio. So he goes ahead and he says, let's take a look at your portfolio. John had a portfolio that was a risk number 62. Wow, almost 40 points different. No wonder why he's experiencing the kind of volatility that he was talking about and making the kind of money that he was talking about. So, you know, John said, okay, that makes sense. You know, I wonder why that portfolio was like that, but, you know, keep going. The advisor says, well, wait a second. I don't want to move on just yet. It looks like you got about 37% in bond holdings. And this is a fun thing. The advisor was probably telling John, this portfolio is conservative. I've got a heavy weighting in bonds here. We're going to be fine. But the advisor said, I don't know. Let's see. I have a feeling that the Fed is going to raise rates, and I'm not sure. So let me stress test this and see what would happen to this portfolio if the Fed raised interest rates at all. So he flipped on the stress test from interest rates going up 1%, and the portfolio went from a risk number 62 to a risk number 81. John's face went as white as a sheet. So the advisor says. I wasn't there. But you can imagine this conversation has changed. I will just ask you, do you think that John was thinking about all the times he played golf with his advisor at that moment, or the times that they went over for the Super Bowl party? The answer is no. John was thinking about his future and his wife's future, and he was knowing that this portfolio was not a good fit for him. The advisor used Riskalyze to propose something new that got the whole portfolio down in that 23 range, and John became a client, and that advisor won a $2 million account in one meeting with Riskalyze. We hear stories like this every single day. Another one I love is, it's much shorter. It's just, we had an advisor who called into the sales line and said, listen, I've heard great things about this. I have a prospect meeting coming up in 3 hours, and I want to use this in that prospect meeting. I want to sign up and get ready. He won a $750,000 account 3 hours after signing up with Riskalyze. And he said to us, listen, I think I probably would have won that account anyway. I'm not attributing all of it to Riskalyze. It's not like you have some sort of silver bullet over there. He said, but what is magical to me is it probably would have taken me 5 to 6 meetings to win that $750,000 account. And you all helped me win it in one. That is the kind of scale and efficiency that we need in today's market. That is the kind of growth that I know you all want to see in your business. So the last thing I'll say before I open this completely up to questions is, with Riskalyze, you can show prospects they're invested wrong and prove to clients they're invested right. And it's going to give you a very sustainable and high growth business in the meantime, all built around risk and empowering fearless investing. Thanks everybody for your time. I'd love to answer any questions you have.
Hey, Kyle, this is John again. We've got, when you look at our mix of business, a lot of the advisors do a variety of things. Some of them will have relationships where they manage some of the money themselves, so the advisor will be building the portfolios and models, and maybe some other money is at a TAMP, like an FTJ or an asset mark or something of that nature.
Sure.
And so a lot of those TAMPs obviously have something, that you can use on their website. But talk to me a little bit about, let's say that I'm someone that outsources that to a variety of TAMPs. How would I use Riskalyze in that scenario?
That's a great question. So we work with, John was sharing with me the TAMPs you work with, and I think we work with all of them: SEI, FTJ Fund Choice, Asset Mark, and I think you have the core one that Lincoln gives you. All it looks like, and we're trying to get better and better with them on making this seamless. But you propose this account to the client, right? And you're going to propose, and we have all of their models in here, right? So if they're SEI or Asset Mark or any of those places, we have all of their strategies, all of the things you're going to be proposing to a client. They're all inside of Riskalyze. So you would propose that model, get the client to sign off on it. You're going to use Riskalyze with the client. And then when the client says yes and they want to open that account, you just tell the TAMP, here's the model I want to use, and here's all the information. I can tell you we have some really fun stuff coming down the pike with SEI today. That's going to be happening probably, early to middle of next year. That'll make that really seamless, and some similar stuff is coming with Asset Mark. But the short answer is, you propose the accounts in Riskalyze, make sure the risk number of the model from Asset Mark or SEI or FTJ aligns and fits this conversation in this workflow. And then you go through your typical account opening process with the TAMP for that client.
Great, thank you.
So John, I see a question in here where folks are asking about the cost. So the cost right now, we are approved at Lincoln for you guys to use. So, you know, it starts for all of you at $135 a month. But John and I are talking about a way to get a special discount for wealth management partners specifically. So most likely it will be lower than the $135 a month. And we hope to have an answer for you back on that pretty shortly. My goal would be by the end of the week to, you know, to at least get some sort of answer on that front, but we'll keep you posted on that. And then there was another question here that asked if we work with Loring Ward. I believe we have their strategies in our system, but we don't have a close partnership with them yet. I know them. Their headquarters is actually a short drive down the road from our headquarters up in the Sacramento area. And so we talk with them frequently, but we haven't quite done any integration or anything with them yet. Any other questions, or should we let them get out of here early, John?
Yeah, if there's no more questions, first of all, Kyle, thank you. I mean, this was, and you know, this is a great introduction. Obviously, there's a lot to absorb here, but what really occurs to me and has occurred to me is I was first exposed to Riskalyze over 2 years ago. And at that time, I introduced it to Lincoln. I was trying to get them to get something on the platform that was a kind of a turnkey approach to an investment policy, you know, review and way of managing in an organized fashion, you know, risk tolerance and we just never could get agreement on it. I mean, it's but there are some advisors within the system. Kyle is correct. I have checked with Lincoln. You know, everything is approved. We're going to do our best to get an enterprise level agreement through Wealth Management Partners, through our firm, for all the advisors that are affiliated with us, to get the price down and to really promote what I believe is a tool that has a lot of application. Everything from managing your current relationships, retention, gathering more assets with those relationships, and then also gaining new clients, really starting that conversation out correctly. This stuff reminds me very much, and many of you may have seen the presentation that we had Brad Orvieto and Bob Oden do many years ago at a Capital Analyst meeting. And some of you, in fact, have used that tool that they introduced there. They described it as the "when are you going to hate me" process. And they took clients through a very similar process to this, and really had the clients tell them, you know, at this point of loss, you're going to get a call from me. And it was not just percentage, it was defined by dollars, like you see here. And then what would happen is later they would either get a call of, you know, why did my portfolio drop so much, or more often, how come I'm not getting the full market return? And they were able to go back to their files and show them, and show them in a very tangible way that actually Bob and Brad were doing their job. They were keeping those clients invested the way they originally planned to, and there was some value to that. What I think Riskalyze has done is it has given you a lot more tools to demonstrate that to clients and to help them feel more comfortable, because you know, the real key to investing is staying in the game, and keeping them in a way where they're comfortable, so that they can get the most out of the market. So anyway, I think there's a lot of value to this. We're going to be following up with everybody and getting some indications of interest. And as soon as we get some pricing and other details, we'll get back to you. And
hey, John, the last thing I wanted to just say, if you don't mind, is I think a lot of software companies sort of get you excited, get you to sign on with them, and then you're kind of on your own. We know that Riskalyze is a bit of a change in how you do things. It's not just as simple as downloading an app to your phone. So because of that, we have an army of folks here that we call coaches. They work specifically for you, the advisors, to help you integrate this into your practice. We have live training every single week where you can come and learn how to use this and how to get integrated into your practice. And we just launched something called Riskalyze Academy, where you can go through and learn step-by-step how to use this in client meetings, how to explain it to clients, and a lot of those sort of outstanding questions that are going to help you integrate this into your practice. So you're not alone. This is something that we're going to help you onboard in your practice, and we're really good at it.
Perfect. All right. Well, listen, thank you. And we'll look forward to meeting with all of you again next month. In the meantime, enjoy the fall weather, and we'll look forward to catching up. Please let us know if there's anything we can do to help. Take care.